there, I am Tamima and welcome to the Real Talk Round Table. Indeed, we are living in unprecedented times. In its wake, the COVID-19 pandemic has left several economic challenges. Businesses have shut down, people have been laid off, people are on salary reductions, and all this really goes back to impacting the financial wellness of individuals, businesses, and the family unit. Well, today on the show, we will be focusing on how you can be smart with your money. Welcome to the round table. Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, full partnership in the conversation. Everyone is party to the decisions that we are making.
So it's always good to sit down and work within your budget. And the biggest challenge has been leaving for other people to see the way we've made it in life.
Welcome to the round table. Thank you so much for joining us. My first guests are David Sijenyi and his wife, Ruguru Gishuki Sijenyi. Welcome to the round table.
Thank you.
So today we're talking about money. And we know in this season especially, money is a very, very important component of life. The reality right now is that businesses are suffering, people have lost jobs, people are on salary cuts. So it really seems like there are, so many demands, but very little money going around. But today we are saying that still, in this, we're calling it the tunnel, in this tunnel, there's still light at the end of the tunnel, but we have to be smart with our money. So probably you're a couple, you've been married for 12 years, and probably just let me know, how did you guys meet?
Well, I'd let Ruguru start on that one, then I can fill in where she misses.
Well, so we actually met in ministry. We're both Christians. We were a part of a ministry group called Aflewo. So I was part of the leadership team. He was in the choir. One day I think I needed an MC. Someone introduced him. So he called in the morning, for, hello, we are supposed to be doing this thing together. So you can hear his voice. So on the phone, it's even a little, so he's just like, hello, this is David. So I was like, sorry, what was that? He passed the test. Anyway, really, we did what we needed to do. I think we started dating maybe 2 years later. Yeah. So that's where we met.
So very strong, firm foundation of friendship.
Yes.
And now 12 years in, how many kids?
3 children, 2 girls, 1 boy.
Age?
9 years, 5 years. She's turning 5 this week, and 3 years.
Okay. So how has the ride been when it comes to marriage? Let me hear from David.
How's the ride been when it comes to marriage? Of course, the typical drama of marriage, but every so often we think about our marriage over the last 12 years and we think, I think we're doing it wrong, because some of the dramas people are saying they've had in marriage, we've only kind of seen from the side, and I think the foundation of friendship was very powerful. But we've been broke. We were broke most of our married life, and there were times when we had lots of money, and there were times when we didn't have much. In fact, most times we didn't have very much. We've mostly been in business together. I've had jobs here and there, but we've mostly really been in business. And for us, it's been an interesting ride of just learning each other, learning about living together, putting together the same, having a joint mindset towards what we want to do with our lives, our kids, how we want to handle our money. And it's been quite the journey.
And I love how you've put it, having a joint mindset, because I know this is something that you're both very passionate about, and you work with families as well, just to teach them how they can handle their money and handle their money well. So let's start with your experience. Like, you've mentioned that you've been broke, you've made money, you've been business partners, and you've been through the whole 360. But I'm sure if I asked you to look back, and you put it very eloquently, you say that there was a point in your marriage and in your life when you were making money, but you had nothing to show for it. So when did you start realizing that, oh my God, we have so many red flags around how we are handling money? And what motivated you to now starting to learn how to be smart with your money?
So my background is in sales and business development. And as you may know, with typical salespeople, money comes our way. And I
when there's money, there's money.
When there's money, there's money.
When there's no money,
when there's no money. And so for most of my life, we had money coming through, and I was mostly the main breadwinner. In fact, we joke that when we were dating and she was the one with the money, we went for more coffee.
She was not giving you a
He was jobless.
Jobless.
So me, I saw potential in there.
So when you talk about marrying potential, that's what she did. And so we've had a good run, and we've had money in a lot of our time. I've made good money. But what happened is that in the time we made money, we didn't know what we know now about how to manage money. And so we spent it. We lived the life. We kind of, but a bit sad, we didn't quite live the life. But we normally joke, tulikula mandazi. We just ate it. We
and like most people, because usually, and especially if you came from a place of lack, the moment you get money, now you're trying to prove a point.
Yes.
I can wear those clothes. I can drive that car.
No, it's that thing for kuambia mwili pole. You know, as in, you guys, we've not eaten properly. You know, I really would like to eat sausages in the morning. So now there's a bit of money. Let's eat sausages in the morning.
Right.
Then there's no money. You're like,
And Sundays, family day, pizza, eating out. And that's also some of the traditions that we have as a family in terms of just having time together. But it wasn't working in terms of when we look back, and especially the times when cash was low. As a consultant, you have this big gig, make a lot of money. We've consulted together. We do trainings, you get this big job, you get some money. But just having the mindset to stretch that money until your next gig was a problem. And so we've had some really low times, really low times. And those low times are the ones that woke us up to wait. We are getting into our 40s. Why isn't this thing working? It looks like everyone else has their life together. Our parents were teachers and were civil servants, yet somehow they managed loan after loan after loan, but they managed.
They owned homes, they were raising
They
7
were never
children.
auctioned.
all who went to university,
You know?
private university,
What are we doing
or the
wrong?
teacher's salary for.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that brought us to the point of saying, I think there's something we need to figure out here. And last year we got into this program that just changed our lives and changed our mindset and our thinking, because it was something we were already asking questions about.
So let me ask now about when it comes to being smart with your money, because you know, really, and I love the statement that you said earlier, joint mindset, because that is the overall principle that we're encouraging most couples to have. You need to have a joint mindset, but the approach might differ. So what's your approach towards that when it comes to income? Is it that when you earn, she earns, it all goes into one pool, ama pesa yako ni yenyu lakini pesa yake ni yake?
Well, we've always had a one pot. When money comes, we decide what to do with it, and then we do. I mean, when it's a little more, then everybody kind of does what what they're doing, and then you say, oh, by the way, I bought a shoe. You know, but we've always had that. It's not your money, it's not my money, your money, it's our money. That has helped, because in our marriage, at one point or another, one of us was earning whilst the other one was not. So my line of work is I do a lot of outdoor adventure. So when I was pregnant and with small babies and stuff, I was not really working. So that means that he was the one who was working. When we were dating, I was the one who was working. Different times he's been in and out of a job, you know. So money has come in when it did. And so because of that, I think we sort of ended up with a one pot. I'm not sure that we did it on purpose, but it wasn't very difficult for us to do that.
And I really don't want to trivialize what you've just said, because you know, to have that mindset where it's our money.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are women especially who are watching and they just want to know from you, Ruguru, how do you make this man actually sign up for this our money business? Because mimi naambiwaga pesa yake ni yake, mimi he will give me what I need, but I have no idea what he earns. You know, you'd be surprised if one day you're seeing, okay, someone bought a new car, you are not consulted.
And it came with a bow.
So, what is the healthy approach? Is it, because there are men who will actually argue that she doesn't need to know how much I earn, I'll just provide. Yeah. So, do you feel like there is this works better than that?
Honestly, I can't say you can make him do anything. I think I will say I have been blessed because he came the way he is. That's the honest truth. It was not difficult for us to have that conversation. It didn't even occur to us that we can have, you know, that story of how much everything is always and has always been in, you know, I've always had access to it. So that has, I think I've been blessed. I don't know what I can tell. I think I would say for the man, you have to be willing, because a woman can't make you do anything.
And maybe let's hear from David, because I'm sure you've come across guys who have like the complete opposite mindset. mimi hawezi jua how much I earn.
Yes.
I'll make sure I've paid rent, I've, you know, all the responsibilities that are mine, I have fulfilled them, but that woman will never know how much I'm earning or how much I'm worth.
Yeah. I think I grew up hearing a lot of such conversations. I remember hearing my mom saying, and as women were talking, that, you know, you need to keep your own kamani on the side.
We're taught that as women, yes.
And that's a teaching. And what that has done is that over time, it's spilled over. That because you had your mom say it, you're like, so why should she know? See, let her know what I've taken care of, and that's all she needs to know. If I choose to give her some of it, then that's what it is. I chose a different approach because I realized there's a lot of things I can gain from just having her being party to the decisions we are making. And we've tried it all. We've tried where I take care of all the bills, and then whatever is left, then we decide what to do with it. We've tried coming up with a plan and then it not getting implemented. We've tried that one of where she's not really privy to how much is left. She knew what came in, but she's not privy to how much is left. But because I'm being generous, she keeps asking and I keep giving, only to realize that we were out of it. We were out of money and she didn't know. So we've now come to that place where we're able to say, you know what? It's best if everyone knows what we are working with and everyone is part of that decision.
So full disclosure.
Full disclosure, full partnership in the conversation. Everyone is party to the decisions that we are making. Why? No one can come later and say, you made that decision, because we made it together.
For sure. So even when she has needs and she feels that the needs are unmet,
yes,
it's not David, it's really look at the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what
it is what it is.
It is what it is. Actually, you know, you have a point there. Because like there are times I'm just like, I mean, we should do, let's take the kids, I come up with such ideas when I don't know what's in his pocket. When I know exactly what's in the pocket, I was like, well, mommy, can we have, there's no money. There's no even discussion. We are not going to ask daddy. We already know how much is there. But when there's that situation for, I'm not sure how much did we spend where, then I'm just like, why are we? Then he says, but there's no money. I'm like, what did we do with it? I'm not spent it.
Full disclosure.
I'm not spent it. But I'm just like, what did we do with it? He's like, yesterday you asked for, then you said, then you sent to me, then, okay. So it's full disclosure.
So now, obviously, you guys seem to have gotten quite a number of things right in terms of like communicating, in terms of like just being a team. So do you ever argue when it comes to money?
So that story for arguing is a bit different with us. So we've always had people have arguments for, I don't care, I've gone, and then close the door and leave. We've never had that argument. I think we've had discussions. I wouldn't call them arguments, because most of the time we were both in it, and we both came up with, it's just like
so how do you handle the difference in opinion?
Now,
huyu anasema twende left, huyu anasema twende right.
So she's a typical choleric. I'm a melancholy, and I sometimes prefer to not have the fight. However, I realize that even in the communication, there's been an aspect of me having to step up and say exactly what I'm feeling and what's going on. Now, I grew up not wanting to have anything that shakes the marriage because of what I saw with my parents and some of their friends and even some of our friends. But I've realized in the recent years, maybe it's turning 40, but I realized in the recent years, I'm a bit more bold in what I have to say and what I want to say. Partly because also I've been hurt in spaces where I've said, let me just let it go. Let me let that go. And so as you talk about communication, we are perfecting that. It's sometimes you think you're communicating, but really it's not all coming out. So in terms of just even being able to say, babe, this is where the money is, we can't afford it. As opposed to just saying, no, not now. She's thinking, not now, why? I mean,
and on that, how important is it? Because you've been married for 12 years, you have kids, and back to again, the golden nugget you dropped.
Yes.
Having a joint vision. Because I kind of feel like it goes back to having a joint vision.
Yes.
That it helps you. When she's feeling that we need to go left, you're saying go right. You both have to come back to the table and remember, our vision was to own a house.
Yeah.
Our vision was for our kids to go to X type of school. Our vision was to live within a certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
So how important is setting that goal right from the beginning?
Yeah.
The truth is we've actually had our our times. Like there's a time he wanted to buy a car. He wants to buy this Mercedes Benz, and I'm just like, Mercedes,
The Star of David.
like that's like the most expensive. The guy's like, no, and he gave a whole PowerPoint presentation as to why he should have it,
Right.
and he wouldn't relent. And I was completely against it.
Yeah.
At some point, I was like, you know what? Buy the car. It's
Yeah.
fine. You know, I mean, we can't keep. So at some point, there's a lot of give and take.
Compromise.
Yeah, depending on, you know, just how much the other person, you know, feels, how deeply they feel about it. I think we've also really learned over the years with that.
And, you know, what I'm catching is that trust. Trust
Yeah.
is a very key element in that. You know, and especially as wives, because wives are told to submit, especially in marriage, but that's a whole other show, a whole other topic. But I feel like the log line here is that even if you submit, you cannot be led by the blind.
Yeah.
You can only submit to someone who has vision, someone who understands that at the end of the day, money, you need to feel your money, think through your money, and make sure that at the end of the day, your money is working for you.
Yeah.
Well, right now I have to take a very quick break. Still more to come here. We are talking about how to be smart with your money. I have experts on the show. If you have any question, get on that SMS line right now. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the round table. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with us. So earlier on, I was talking to a wonderful couple, David and Ruguru. So they've just been sharing with us how they've handled money in their 12-year-long marriage. And lots of wisdom here. So earlier on, we were touching on wisdom and how that is important if you want to make sure that you stay on track with your financial goals. So David, you wanted to touch a bit more on that.
Yeah. So we got married young. We were both 28, and I think people are getting married younger or older now. But we were both 28 at the time. And I remember us thinking, you know what? What do we want to see? What do we want to achieve? And first of all was that no one's getting out of this marriage. So we locked the door and threw the keys outside. So no one's getting out of this marriage. So everything else was founded on that.
And that made it easier for the full disclosure.
It did.
Because you are in it for life.
We are in it for life. And until death do us part, literally. And so the foundations for our money decisions started there. We knew we wanted to take our kids to a certain school, because a certain type of school, because we are saying we are raising global citizens. So there's a certain way we want to raise them. There's a certain school system that's going to take there, or there are certain school systems that will get them there. It then helped us put in the foundations of how we want to converse, work together, deal with each other, engage with each other around money. And so all those foundations were set from that decision that we are partners in life. So our life decisions we're going to make together.
Okay, so I want to get a bit, I'm going to be a bit specific here in terms of like some mistakes that especially couples can make early on in marriage or even later on in marriage. You know, when you're making a mistake and you don't recognize it's a mistake, you'll make it 20 years, 30 years in.
Yeah.
And just to help us decode some of these money mistakes is our expert today. He's a financial advisor, Mr. Victor Marango. I hope I got that right, Victor.
Yep.
Welcome to the round table. So listening to this wonderful couple here talk, and I just want to run you through a couple of things. And there's something that they said here, and I really want you to just break this down, because she mentioned he wanted a Mercedes, but she gave in. And I really don't feel that applies to everybody. So when we're looking at mistakes that people do make when it comes to money, let's talk about purchasing cars. What do people need to have in mind when it comes to making decisions around, you know, things like automobiles and investments in that particular area?
Okay, thank you so much. The most important thing to look at, especially buying a car, is a major purchase for a family setup, for example. And buying a car is not the end of it. A car comes with costs. Let's say you buy a Mercedes, it costs you maybe 3.6 million or whatever the amount you want to raise. Maybe if you're taking it on loan, you will have to cater for the loan repayment. And then besides the loan repayment, you have to look at the fuel, and you have to look at the service. You have to look at parking, all those things. Most of the guys look at it this way: oh look, we got this windfall, and I think we have enough money to buy a Mercedes, or we qualify for this particular loan. Commercial banks, they'll call you when they see your bank statement, and they'll call you, they tell you, oh, look, you qualify for a loan. What do you think? So it can be very tempting, especially at the point of making a decision to buy a car. In this story, one and to give in. And by giving in means that there was a compromise. And that is, it can, at the moment, it's giving in, but it creates a point for a potential conflict in future when something else comes up. Let's say she says, I also saw a good Mercedes, looks good for a lady, and then it can put more financial pressure. So
Victor,
it's always important.
I want to find out from Ruguru, because
Yes.
also this is a valid one with couples, especially in terms of when it comes to a car. Do you need to have two cars? So have you ever been in a situation where you opted to share a car? Because at that time, that's what made sense. And then probably at some point, you upgraded, and now she got her other Mercedes.
So the Mercedes eventually got sold, by the way. It just didn't work.
Wasn't working.
It was an old Mercedes,
Yeah.
ilitusumbua, but eventually we sold it.
Yeah.
But we have shared a car for many years, as much as we actually needed a second car. We are both in business. We are always in, you have 3-4 meetings in a day, both of us. Sharing a car then just becomes, everyone is getting late everywhere. So we have shared a car for a long time. Eventually we did buy a second car. But it's one of those situations where you have to decide which one is more important. In this day and age, especially now in Corona, you can't exactly keep going in matatus and everywhere you go, you have 5 meetings. So eventually we gave in.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we've done it all, really. That is.
Okay, so Victor, I want us to talk about another big one, homes. So when it comes to renting, because I see that, again, this is a common mistake that couples will make, because, and I know us daughters of Eve, we can come with pressures. Me, I want to live in a house with a
Precisely.
compound.
Yeah, in a pool.
I want to live with a house that has this and that and that. So why is it important when you're selecting the home that your family will live in to make sure that that home really is within your budget?
Yeah, rightfully, we have and a lot of people under peer influence or peer pressure, because Kina so and so are living in this particular neighborhood, they are living like this, so why can't we move there, and all that kind of stuff. It puts a lot of pressure in families trying to live like the Joneses. Nowadays, buying a house or renting depends on where you are in your financial journey. For example, if you have school going kids, and you want to, for example, to live in an expensive neighborhood, whatever you comes in must be able to allow that. So it's always good to sit down and work within your budget. And the biggest challenge has been living for other people to see the way we've made it in life, because there's a lot of influence out there, there's a lot of pressure. But when couples coming together, like the way David's family comes together and decides, this is what we need to do. Because I've seen guys well-to-do with a lot of good potential actually part ways, because the lady feels, I'm not living in the kind of man that I really wanted to live with at the end of the day. And they part ways on those grounds, yeah. Yeah, so they end up living on those grounds, and at the end of the day, what is going to happen? You end up with single parents at the end of the day, and then less income and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to renting, always rent within your standard. And the rule of the thumb is that you cannot spend more than 15% of your income on rental. If it is a mortgage, you can go up to 30% of your income, so that you can operate within that budget. So if you find you're earning 100,000 and you're paying rent 30,000, it's the time to move to your budget at least 15,000, so that you can have money allocated for other resources. So if you have a plan, because people argue based on the kind of information they have, but what if you have a plan? If you have a rule that you play by, and you know very well, if you are bringing in 200,000 every month total, then we can spend up to 30,000 on housing. If it goes beyond that, then that is out of our budget. And if couples agree, like we've been taught today about a joint mission, which is a good takeaway from me as well, having a joint mission, I think that is why we want to bring everybody in terms of financial planning and in terms of housing.
Okay, so back to you, David and Ruguru. When it comes to housing, what has been your experience? Have you had to downsize? And I kind of feel like, especially in this season, we really need to help people understand that there is no shame in downsizing.
Yeah.
because so many people's income, source of livelihood has been disrupted by this pandemic. So if you were working and you're out of a job, if you have a salary reduction, you know, and if your business is not doing well, there is no shame in saying that I used to live in Kileleshwa, but now I had to relocate and now I live all the way in that county that people say. You know, there are so many cheaper options. There is no shame.
Yeah. So thanks for that question. So how we started was we were living, of course, started small house within our budgets, moved to a slightly upgraded a bit. Then at a certain point, I think in 2013, 2014, my earnings were looking good. So we upgraded and moved to a nicer house. But we were always sober enough to not move into the expensive areas. So we moved kind of in shags, but a house within the size that we wanted. Then I lost my job. And I was the only breadwinner. And that was a wake-up call to just how a seemingly simple decision can turn very wrong. We were moving because my income was, I was in sales, earning freelance, so I was earning commissions. So it looked like I was going to be doing very well. Then my job ended. And then here we were, having rent issues and struggling with that. Now, it didn't matter whether we downgraded or not, because I didn't get a job for another 5 months. And once we'd built that, we dug that hole, we couldn't even move. So even the downsizing was not an option, because how do we leave this backlog and move to something else? What are we saying? So what we did is we opened up a conversation with our landlord and explained to him, this is our situation and we're going to fix it. And that process then was us coming to terms with, we really need to rethink this model. We really need to rethink how we are doing life, because it's definitely going to cost us. We have, in difficult times, for example, even now, in difficult times, we've taken the responsibility to talk to the people that we owe and tell them this is the reality of our situation. And that's something that we learned as how to manage debt. That sometimes in downsizing, you get the impression that that problem is gone. It's not gone. It still has to be dealt with. We, having been in business, come from a place of how do we increase our income? How do we reach a place where we're able to meet what we are going through, as opposed to going back? Because what has happened is we've seen people downsize and they never come up again. And so that was is how we've done
You've
that.
touched on two things that I want Victor to address very quickly. He lost his job very suddenly. And what I'm hearing here is usually the advice that most of us, we've had it, but very few of us actually implement this. The importance of having an emergency fund. And usually you advise that this should be around almost 8 to 12 months. An emergency fund that can take you, you know, that far, 8 to 12 months. With or without income, you know that I have this fund, I can survive on it. And another thing that he's mentioned, again, tackling and negotiating debt. And I feel like in this season, very important points. Victor.
Yeah, it's always important, especially when you were working, when you are working at that moment. It's always good to look ahead and ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? What if I lose my job? Those questions should always be on top of your mind. And you're very right. Some say you can start with 6 months of your gross income, monthly income, so that even if you lost a job and you have some skills, by the time you're doing 6 months, at least you'll have gotten a job. But it becomes a bit hard, especially during this period when companies are downsizing, people are going on half salaries, others are totally losing their jobs. Going up to 12 months of your income as an emergency fund is very critical. And most of the people look at it and see it as a very big number. And it should be set aside from the 10% savings we talk about. That one should be away from the emergency fund. Because most of us take it and then they just do savings and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you see yourself out of job, and that is why even people take insurance, right? Right now, there are companies that are offering, insurance companies that are offering retrenchment insurance. You pay a small premium about it. So it is two ways. Someone is working, they have not yet lost their job, and the other way, someone has already lost their job. That has to do with downsizing and coming back strongly, knowing that I need an emergency fund. Someone who is already working at the moment needs to realize that something like what has happened can happen, because we all have someone around us who have been affected by COVID. They have lost their jobs, their business have closed. Therefore, that emergency fund comes in handy. And some of those emergency funds are actually running out because we have been on lockdown for this is the second year right now, So it's always good to have that plan. And in terms of financial planning, I normally like taking my clients through an entire the 360 in terms of financial planning, so that even when the emergency fund runs out, you can go and liquidate part of your investments. This is where now asset accumulation comes in, which we can pick up in another discussion.
Okay, and investments, as we wind up very quickly,
Yeah.
How important have investments been in your financial security as a family?
I would say very important. You know, one of the things that we've very recently gone back to is the cash flow game. And one of the things that comes out of that thing is passive income. Because like Victor is saying, if you have passive income, whether or not you have a job, there's something that is coming in, whether or not you actually wake up in the morning and go to work. So if you invest in something that can bring you passive income, then you're really covered when that situation comes. So that has been our biggest lesson, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years. We've done a few investments which have brought in some kind of passive income. It's not yet reached where it can cover all our expenses, but it takes care of a few things here and there. It makes all the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you've had it. Right now it's time for a very quick break. When we come back, still more to learn when it comes to being smart with your money. Don't go too far. Well, I certainly hope that you're learning, because I am. And remember, the thing about money is that most of us we've not been educated around how to make money work for you. And you can argue that mimi sijasomea hiyo bachelor of, BCom, commerce. But guys, especially now, 2021, with this corona, you have to be smart with your money. You have to make it your business to understand your money. Because on one hand, as we are saying that perhaps people are struggling, on the other hand, there are people who are thriving. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you make sure that at the same time, taking stock of where you're at, what you have, and learning to invest in yourself? Does it mean you're going to start a new business? Does it mean you're going to chase other avenues of passive income like you had? And when you get that money, because there is one thing to say I have money, it's just sitting in an account. How can you make sure that your money is working for you? So Victor, early on you were touching on investments, and I know that Ruguru mentioned passive income. But what other risk, or should I say safe investment options are available in this season?
The investment world is quite wide, and what determines how you approach your investment is based on your objectives, the goals that you want to achieve. I like directing my clients to what I use in marketing planning, what we call the source stack framework, where you start with the situation analysis, where you are at the moment, objectives, where you want to be, and then of course the strategy, how do you get there. The tactics is exactly what are you going to do to get there, and then of course the action is the actual actions that you're going to take with an action plan, and then the last C is about control and measurement of how you're exactly going to get there. So we basically in investments, there is what we call, you can invest in debt, for example bonds. You can invest in equity where you buy shares, and then there are other alternative investments like real estate. And then, of course, you can look at investing in global markets, whereby you have certain funds in the country that can expose you to global markets, and you're able to enjoy returns from economies that are doing very well.
And so, in case there's someone who's listening and they're thinking, this all sounds so nice, it sounds so smart.
Yes.
But where will I get someone who will help me figure my way around this?
It is always good to involve a financial planner. The way we've advanced, we have institutions and institutes that are actually certifying financial planners. Like if you go to the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, you get that certification for a certified financial planner who has got an overview of the entire investment landscape. Then they're able to sit down with you and look at your investment objectives, help you set up a plan, and then reach to it. The reason as to why we're having this discussion, surely, is because in our 844 system, or 8442 or 9 or 10 or whatever,
whatever it is now.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
We were never taught how to do personal financial planning.
We were taught to get jobs.
Exactly.
But once you get that job, nayo mshahara inaingia, what do you do with that money to make sure that you earn your freedom?
Yeah, you find a CFO of a company that is doing very well, earning per share, doing very well, listed at the NSE, struggling with personal finances, and that they are overseeing a company that is making millions and millions. Why? Because there was no personal financial planning training right on the onset. And that's why I encourage that. Why don't we have this embedded in our learning system? And because now we don't have it at the moment, these are the kind of interventions, and this initiative by Switch TV is very important to be able to educate the public. And like firefighting, and I hope we learn this so that we take our kids early enough. Things like how to bring up a kid, for example. Nobody taught us how to bring a kid. It's all trial and error, with more of error than the other side. So financial planning requires, it's evolving every other time. It requires you to be a lifelong learner, because the experience you have with money.
I have some great news from David and Riguru around a program that they are part of, and they're going to be giving actually a slot to a lucky viewer to actually go through this program and learn.
Exactly.
Because the thing about money is that you'll never stop learning. And there's something you touched on a bit earlier that I want you to expound on, Victor. How to tackle and negotiate debt, especially in this season when so many people are behind on their loan payments, when so many people are behind on their mortgage payments, when so many people's expenses are not necessarily matching what their income is. Yani, expenses are here, income is here. So what advice do you have for these people?
Okay. Debt, first of all, we have to agree, debt is a function of behavior. Debt is not a function of how much you're making. It's a function of behavior and your spending habits. So you ought to accept that you're in debt. First of all, accept that I'm in debt. After accepting that, now you allow your system now to appreciate any effort that you make or any plan you put. Like debt consolidation. If you say I owe someone 10,000, I owe this bank 15,000, I owe another one 300,000, you are able to consolidate and start paying off so that you don't get overwhelmed with, for example, reminders and notifications of you've not paid this. It can really make your pressure to spike. So debt management requires that psychological stability, which comes from accepting, first of all, that I owe these people. I appreciate the debt I took, and this is what I did with it. And therefore, start planning how to repay. Talk to the person who gave you the debt, where you got your debt, and have them help you also structure a plan. For example, there was call by commercial banks to those people who have loans, because we've seen the NPLs almost 14%, non-performing loans, almost 14%, which is very huge. A huge population affected, especially business professionals. So they are calling for restructuring. So you can talk about restructuring. If you've taken an unconventional loan, it becomes a bit hard, but you can always negotiate, because this person, if it's not auction or anything else, before that it gets to that, you have to show the commitment to repay. And because everybody has been affected by the pandemic, it becomes easier to understand. So don't hide yourself and hate yourself about it. It's affecting everybody. Accept it, and then learn to negotiate. And always, when you're negotiating, even when whatever exemptors you take, make sure that you're not paying a very high interest at the end of the day. So it's always important to have a plan. You also involve a financial plan as well to help you restructure the debt, because if you go to the person who gave you the debt, they will always create something that favors them at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, you may end up paying 3 times or 4 times because now that time you are a slave. When you've taken that, you become a servant, you become a slave. And the person who you're indebted to is your master at that particular moment. To break off those shackles, seek financial advice. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Victor. So now, I mentioned, and you touched on it actually earlier on, where you said you guys joined a wonderful program, and it's been part of what has actually helped, because you're still learning.
Yeah.
Nobody really has it, unless now you're Bill Gates. But I'm sure even Bill Gates is still trying to
learning.
make more money.
Yeah, and he's learning.
So tell me about that.
So we made many mistakes. And so currently we are actually in a program called Couples and Money, which we're going through, and we are working towards becoming coaches for that. It's been designed by Moridi and Karo Anjao. But the program that we are already coaching, and we've got a class that just started, the April class just started. started, going for 8 weeks. And it's from this book by Moses Mukisa, Straightforward Financial Growth. And Straightforward Financial Growth just deals with the mindset of you as a person who's earning money. And it comes from the story of it took many years of working and not making money, which we resonated with. We'd made so much money, but what did we have to show for it? And the starting point is dealing with a mindset. We handle money the way we've been taught, and we are not taught this is how you handle money, just the way we saw it modeled by our parents.
We're taught to earn money.
Exactly.
Full stop.
That's all we were taught. And so we saw how money was being spent at home, and that's what we took.
Right.
So we either took the angle of, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to deny my kids anything they want. Or we took the angle of, I am never going to spend money the way I saw people spend money.
Right.
So this book is, we now run it in form of a mastermind, where we go through this book and we read others. And so we are running that program. It's an 8-week program where we meet for 1.5 hours on a day that we pick, and then we have work to do over the next 1 week. And it's one of those things that has changed our lives. We already were saving were giving 10%. We moved our savings from 10% to 20%.
So and you have it down. Like, you guys are doing 10% type,
10% type,
20%
savings, and then 20% debt.
So now we are at 50%.
We are 50%, and we are making the other 50% work.
Wow.
And so as we clear that, we'll then say, when we are done with that, with our debts, then we are going to see, do we apportion 10% back to spend, give ambia mwili pole, and then there's also a 10% towards giving.
Right.
Now just towards helping other people that are in trouble. And we found this as a very useful and powerful model towards turning around your financial fortunes.
And you're offering that to a lucky viewer.
Yes.
So all you have to do is get on that SMS line. Let me know why you deserve a slot to actually sit through this program that runs for how many weeks?
For 8 weeks.
For 8 weeks. Yeah. You're going to be taught all these wonderful nuggets. Na kuuliza si ujinga.
Si ujinga.
Just remember that when it comes to your money, I'd rather be the biggest fool in the room, but I'm learning.
Yeah.
So that's what we are offering you, a chance to actually sit into this wonderful program. Get on that SMS line. Let me know why you deserve this opportunity. So I'm going to be giving out 2 slots. One person is going to get a slot into the program, and a second person is going to walk away with the book, which is the book Straightforward Financial Growth by Moses Mukisa, which actually is a book that it's very engaging.
Yes.
Because it gives you exercises.
Yes.
So if you don't have time for the program and you just want the book, get on that SMS line. Well, thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
I was just going to say, with the program, the program is based on the book, but one of the other things that the mastermind does is you get to read another book every week.
Right.
So not just this book. By the time it's 8 weeks, you've probably read about 9 books on learning about finances. So the mastermind even takes you a little further.
And you know what I love about these programs, and I feel like probably in this culture, we don't stress the importance of signing up for such programs, because you get to meet other like-minded people,
Yes.
you get to network, you get to have like a community, you know, it's not just about the 8 weeks. So get on that SMS line right now. Well, right now for me, it's time for a break. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the round table. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with us. Well, today we are talking all about money and tips that you can use to be smart with your money. Joining me right now, I have Joseph Mwangi and TJ, who are from Mufasa Tours and Travel Company. So we're just going to be looking at the angle of running a business that has been highly impacted, especially in this pandemic period. And so you guys, obviously in tours and travel, it goes without a doubt that with all these restrictions, your business has been highly impacted.
Yes, correct.
Maybe just tell us a bit about the difficulties that you faced and how you have perhaps innovated to overcome them.
Okay, we had so many bookings before the COVID came, and immediately the COVID hit the world. Cancellations and from all over the world had it cancelled, and then now to recover from such bad things that happen, hotels that we take guests are able to provide things that are be able to curb the pandemic, such as the virus, disinfecting the rooms, such things, vehicles we are trying to carry as minimum so that we are avoiding the spread of the virus. Yeah, such as things that we are trying to manipulate so that we can be able to transport guests from any point to the other.
And because obviously now we've been in this for a year plus.
Yes.
During this period, was there a point where you perhaps felt maybe it's time to wrap it up and close this business? Did you have such moments?
Yes, we can say there's a time we were, let me not say we were like fed up, but we were really stressed out because of the bookings getting cancelled. We do have our driver guides. They have rent to pay, they have bills to pay, and they usually one of their main income is through the safaris. So there's no safaris, there's nowhere people can travel to. So for them means you have to stay at home and you have bills. So levels of stress, depression, like, was simply around everyone by that time. It was a hard place. We were at a really hard place. So we just had to cut a few things, to take pay cuts, avoid a few things in order for our bills and our cash to be able to sustain us.
So how many people were part of your company pre-pandemic?
In the office we had about, we had employed more than 10 people who were working at the office.
Right.
So you find now after the COVID came, now we are only like 3 or 2 in the office, so that we can be able to avoid that contact.
So you had to make the hard decision to let the other 7 go.
Yeah, and it was the most difficult thing because telling someone to leave the office and go and work from home, it's very difficult because our industry, it contributes much when you are at the office and when you are at home, because we need to discuss various things that we need to implement. So telling someone to go home was one of the most difficult things. Yeah.
And the 3 who stayed on, you had to also effect pay reductions.
Yes, correct. Because now there is no income coming in, so you find the money that is getting into the office is very little, but the money that is leaving the office is more. So you are running a loss for the period where the COVID has hit.
So for you as the business owner, what do you feel are your biggest lessons in this season?
Biggest lessons is savings is very important, because it has helped us through. Because if it was not for the work that we had done before COVID, I don't think we'll be able to survive with no cash, because cash is everything. So you're able to pay your office, you're able to pay the little amount you're able to pay your workers. You're getting it from the small savings that you had done before, small insurance that you had invested in, small savings you had invested in the banks. So it's 1 year plus, and I can say it's a difficult, because you have to like get loans to sustain yourself, and we are just digging our own problems, because debt after debt after debt, and we don't know when this COVID will end, so it becomes a bigger problem for the future.
And how have you perhaps adapted in this period to also just make sure that the little business that is there, you're still getting it?
To sustain ourselves, the small business that comes in, we try as much to save the little that comes to the office for the future. Yeah, so that we're able to pay our rents, pay our salaries, and also, yeah, basically just to sustain us with our families back at home.
Okay, so in studio I have Stella Chapman. She is a personal financial coach and trainer. So Stella, listening to Joseph and TJ, it really sounds that the challenges that they're having is pretty much commonplace these days. What advice would you give to other business persons who perhaps are also going through the same thing?
Okay, thank you so much. I think what I would say to the business people is this: when you're doing business, always remember the rainy day. So even in business, you're supposed to be putting aside what I would call an emergency fund. And this emergency fund is what now will be able to save you during difficult times. So as you do your business, put a percentage of your gains or your profits into an account where I usually advise that an account that earns you an interest higher than the inflation rate, to be able to preserve your capital. So what you need to identify is which is this account that will give me, or which is this financial instrument that will be able to give me an interest that is higher than the inflation rate. Once you put your money there, other than your money just staying there as an emergency fund or as a saving account, it is also earning an interest. And I've seen people, even during this season, business people who have used the interest they have earned over time to be able to now pay their bills, and their business have been able to sustain. So you remember talking about issues to do with passive investment. That is part of the passive investment that you can do when you're doing your active investment, which is the business, so that it can help you during the dry season that we're experiencing now, even during this COVID season.
So you've talked about the emergency fund, but we know depending on the size of the business and the magnitude of the operations, there are businesses that right now are in debt. What advice would you give to businesses that perhaps are finding that whatever it is they're earning, or whatever income is coming in, is not necessarily matching the debt that they're currently in? How do you realign and reorganize yourself?
Okay, what I usually say is when you find yourself in such a situation, you need to readapt. You know, you need to renovate, because what has happened, and I will use an example. For example, for the people who do training like myself, when COVID came, we could not be able to do the trainings physically. So what did we do? We just moved to the online platform. We continued doing training, and for sure it opened up other ways. So one of the things for a business person, renovate yourself, reinvent the wheel, because I always say there are many ways to kill the cat. And so if there is one way that has always worked for you, just always remember there's a way that can also work for you and earn money. So that is number one. Number two, you need now to ask yourself, what is most important for you now? Can you renegotiate your debt with your bank? Can they give you more time? Can you pay a lesser installment so that you can at least save something for yourself? Because if you look at life, there's a saying that says that a language that money understands. You save me now, I save you tomorrow. And so even the other thing that you need to ask yourself is that even when you're taking that business loan, what were the factors that you considered before you took the loan? Because one of the factors you should consider when you're taking the loan is, if this one aspect of business doesn't bring in money, if this business collapses, what is my plan B? How am I going to repay back my loan if the business collapses, or if something affects my business? So even before you take the loan, my advice is this: always follow through the factors to consider before taking a loan. And one of them is ensuring that you always have another source of income, or sources of income, that in case if this one does not work, this one will come and help you. So if you're in that situation now that you're struggling, try and balance, because if you don't balance again, you'll still find yourself in the same situation of you don't have enough capital to be, or enough income to be able to meet your expenses, including the debt expenses. So you need to reorganize your finances, see where to cut out, even in business, see whom to let go. It's very painful to let staff go, but some of the times it is the only option that you have on the table. The thing is, how do you let them go? What do you tell them when they are leaving? How do you just wake up in the morning and tell them that kazi imeisha, or do you take them through the process for them to be able to understand? And one thing I would tell business people is that also train your people not just to be, earning a salary, and also help them to understand, how do I save? How do I save for a rainy day? So that when you tell somebody now kazi imeisha unaenda nyumbani, they don't feel bad. They feel like you gave me value, because when I came to work for you, you taught me something. You taught me that don't eat all the amount of money, but you can put something aside for a rainy day. So that is what I would be able to advise a business person.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Stella. And so back to you, Joseph and TJ. So in as much as there is a restriction around leaving Nairobi and the environs, I'm sure there's still a lot of opportunities within Nairobi. Okay. And you were even just touching on it, like what mnaweza peleka watu kwa park. So in case you feel like you're very stressed, please reach out to Mufasa Tours and Travel. I believe you're on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah. And really right now, guys, I feel like we all need to support each other, support your friends' business, promote them, because hata hiyo pesa kidogo, it's better than nothing. And really, just to recap what we've learned today. Number one, don't spend more than what you're making. Number two, always plan for an emergency fund, whether as an individual, within the family unit, or even as a business. And number three, invest. help your money grow. Well, that's it from me, Tamima. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember that you can win this book. Get on the SMS line, tell me why you deserve it, and of course a slot in the wonderful program just to learn a bit more, just to learn some more tips around how you can be smart with your money, because obviously we cannot exhaust everything in this 1 hour show. But again, thank you so much for staying with me. As always, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time. That's it from me. I'll see you next week.